welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris back again. This time, for the first time in a long time, we're going to talk about some Voyager, and we're talking about Voyager's fourth studio album, I Am the Revolution.
Third.
Yes, that's what I said. And I cannot believe that it has been this long since we talked about Voyager, and also the fact that this album came out in 2009. Wow, time flies, and you're right. It is their third album. I'm glad you chose this. I know that there was some question last week as to what you were going to select, and I think you made the right choice for several reasons, and we'll get into that. But before we talk all things Voyager, how are you, my friend?
Good. Today was a wild day in the work front, but I listened to Voyager, and it's something that I used to do when I first got into the band. I would just put them on when I was having a hard work day, and the music would just carry me to the end of the day. Them, Power Quest, Majestica / Rainseed. Like, there's just certain bands that really just could kind of pick me up when I need a little oomph, so to speak. And so it was good to listen to those first four albums are what I was focused on, and I really felt like in order to discuss this album, I wanted to kind of listen to the albums that surrounded it, because it had been a long time since I, sat down and listened to really any of these albums start to finish. So
did it give you obviously we'll get into this, but did it give you a better perspective for or appreciation? Did it change anything for you, or was it basically right what you expected?
It's right where I expected, but I think it will provide with a little bit more color and detail in like what I have to say as we go on. So for that, I'm glad that I went back and listened to those albums, especially because the previous album, Universe, was one that we actually did an episode on, and it was so long ago that, like, I think that was the last time I actually listened to the album start to finish. So I couldn't even remember. I was like, do I like this album better than Universe, less than Universe, same? Like, where does the debut album fit in? Where does the follow-up to I Am the Revolution fall into it? The meaning of I? Like, I just... I had a lot of internal questions that needed answering, so
I'll allow it. I'll accept it. We'll get into it. We'll get into it in a little bit. But before we do, did you have a chance to check anything out this week? Anything catch your ear? Anything new? Anything enjoyable?
I will say I got a message or an email from Bandcamp, and came to find out that a band that I don't know if I'd call it a band as much as it is just two guys that play acoustic guitar, but they're called the Super Guitar Bros. I had made mention of them, I think, a couple of years, last year, the year before. I saw them in Carborough, North Carolina, open for Bit Brigade, and they were so good. Like, just these two guys with the two acoustic guitars playing video game themes and the X-Men cartoon theme and stuff like that. And so a lot of the songs that I heard them play made it onto their latest album, which is called SGB 64. It's not really super focused on Nintendo 64 games, although there are some, but there's a lot of really cool tunes in here. The ones that I particularly enjoyed were the Super Mario Land, Overworld, and Underworld medley. They did Vamo a la Flamenco, which was one of my favorite songs from Final Fantasy IX. The Blue Fields, which I believe was the Overworld map music for Final Fantasy VIII. Dragon Roost Island, which is one of my favorite songs from The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And then there's other stuff, Castlevania 4, Simon's Theme, another one I really enjoy. Wave Race, Mario Kart 64, Persona, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, Animal Crossing. I mean, they really kind of cover a lot of different stuff. I mean, they literally have Echo the Dolphin wedged in between Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Star Fox 64. So
because why not?
Yeah, so I'm going to add one of those tracks to my next playlist, but I definitely recommend checking this out if you just like video game music or acoustic guitar. This is works for either, and if you like both, then I think you'll doubly enjoy. But with the everything going on this coming weekend, for me, traveling and stuff, I kind of put a pause on a lot of listening to new stuff. But I plan on getting back into it in the month of August, leading into Prog Power, and then after Prog Power, and start getting that list formatted. Is that a word? Formulated?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, it is now. Put it on a shirt. So yeah, I have definitely been just putting on Prog Power bands on shuffle though, and it's interesting because I think I'd mentioned this last week, where there's just bands I keep forgetting about. Like Firewind came on, I was like, oh right, they're playing, and then an Iced Earth song came on from the album that Ashes of Ares is going to perform, and that one really took me by surprise. I think I'd mentioned you before. I don't even remember the last time I even listened to an Iced Earth song. So I'll repeat what I said last week, but finding time to take a break at this festival is going to be hard because it's a pretty loaded lineup. With I heard a bunch of Brainstorm songs, including Highs. Was it Highs Before Lows or Highs Without Lows? And I hadn't heard that song in ages, and that got me excited to see Andy Frank and the gang. So I mean, I'm sure we'll be talking plenty of it in the weeks to come. But I'm starting to really get excited, and it's exciting. And I was talking to Milton earlier, and he sounds like he's pretty excited about his lineup for next year. I'm really looking forward to seeing the reveal for that, and yeah, a lot of exciting stuff. But I do need to get kind of back on the horse as far as listening to some new albums. I have a handful that I would like to check out. Thankfully, I'm not terribly behind. It's let me see, 6 or 7 albums. That's not too bad. I've been way deeper in the hole in previous years, so not too bad.
Nice.
I assume you've probably listened to more new stuff than I have.
I have. I want to mention 2 albums in particular, but I spent a lot of the week going down the rabbit hole of old stuff that I hadn't listened to in some time, but some old favorites. I'll get to all that. But the first band I wanted to kind of give a shout out to was a band called The Spectre Beneath. I had never heard of this band before. I believe they're out of the UK, and their new album, The Devil's Whisper, is their 4th full-length studio album. What was interesting is like I said, 4th album. I had never heard this band before, but they do a really nice blend of power and prog metal with female vocals that soar over the top. Awesome riffs. I'll share one of their tracks. They're an independent band. They're not on a major label at this point, but something to keep an eye on. I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed the new Galnerius album called A Cry from the Sky Above. Really, really solid release. 95% of it was in Japanese, which is kind of interesting because the song titles are in English, but the lyrics most certainly are not. But really, really enjoyable. So I wanted to mention that as well. But other than that, I actually spent a lot of the week listening to two albums that we covered in the past, but it had been a spell since I listened to them. And I'm talking about Opeth's Blackwater Park and Operation Mindcrime. And God, they just hit at a different level compared to basically everything else in the world. So I spent some time listening to Mindcrime today, and I'm like, this just puts me in my happy place. So I just wanted to mention those.
Before we dig into this album, why don't you share with the listeners what we talked about on our bonus episode this month? Because I thought that it was an interesting conversation, and it got the conversation going in our Patreon chat. I thought it was a really interesting conversation. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah,
so did I. I used an AI generated list for the top 10, we'll call it influential metal albums of all time. So not necessarily the best, not necessarily the most grossed sales or anything like that, but influential albums. And that's really what kind of generated my my listening of Mindcrime today, if I'm being honest, because it did make the list at number 10.
That's what made me think of it, if I'm being honest.
and then there's some of the usual suspects, I think. Many of the usual suspects make the list. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, etc. But it made for an interesting conversation because one of the Patreon members, Adam, put his list of top 10, and I think that it was a really good list because his perception or his take on what the list should be were 10 albums that were really genre defining and in many ways birthed their respective genres. He had a Candlemass album, he had a Halloween album for power metal, stuff like that. And so I thought his
Motley
list
Crue.
was, like just a really, really good list. And in a sense, almost better than the AI list for what it was. The AI list, I think, went with some of the bigger albums, Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz and things like that. So, again, not bad by any means. Certainly the Black Sabbath debut belongs on any list like that. But I did think that Adam's list was particularly interesting.
Yeah, I like that he basically said, these are the 10 most important metal genres, and each album is the most important or the most groundbreaking or influential of each of those 10 genres, and for that reason it made for a really good list, but also just a really wide spreading or wide reaching list as far as genres go. And I've always said that metal, I think, probably has more subgenres than any macro genre of music, so to speak. And so, he really showed that with his list. I'm always amazed at people's knowledge of music, that they can pull these lists together. I have a hard enough time making a top 10 list of my favorite band's albums. It's never mind an entire genre's most important ones. So, yeah, it's cool. I just like that sometimes these discussions will bring out other people's thoughts, and it makes for really good back and forth and good dialogue. So I wanted to make sure we mention that because I think it's one of the benefits of being a part of the Patreon.
Yeah, well said, and I agree. So if you want more information about that, obviously check out the links below. Consider joining. Lots of cool stuff there, and we think it's worth your while. So give it a shout out if you're one of the new listeners to the show. And we've had several people start following and really kind of getting on the train, so to speak. So give it a consideration. But that said, I want to talk about Voyager. And yes, this is I Am the Revolution. Yes, this is their third full-length studio album. It came out September 25th of 2009. And some of these names, if you're a fan of the band, are going to be very familiar. Two of the names are not going to be familiar because this is not the lineup they have today, the lineup that's kind of been together for quite some time now. But I will say that two of the members left after the recording of this album, and two members jumped on board shortly thereafter. So Daniel Estrin on vocals, keyboards, guitars, guitar, and the lyricist. Alex Canyon on bass, Simon Dow on guitars, joined by Mark Bojan on drums and Chris Hansen on guitars. As I mentioned, the latter two would leave the band shortly after its release. When you go back to 2009 and you go back to this album, were you already a massive fan of the band, or was this kind of the time where you started getting into them, if you recall? And I mention it because I remember vividly, and I mentioned this the last time we talked about them, but I remember listening to their debut album shortly after it came out and thinking to myself, I've never heard anything like this. It was just so unique. And then when Universe came out, I was like a complete fanboy by that point. And then obviously that would continue with this album as well. So I was well versed in the art that is Voyager by 2009. I wasn't sure when you actually started getting into them.
Yep, I will answer that question. I just want to just talk about the band's lineup really quick?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it. So
Yeah.
this has always been, Danny has been a part of this from the start. He was the only member of the band that, as it's known today, that was on the first album, Element 5. And he was joined by Melissa Fiocco, who was the bass player at the time, Mark Dave Atimo, who was the guitar player, Jeff Callahan on drums, and Emmanuel Rudnicki on guitars. And you're probably like, who are all these people? Because the Voyager we know and love today are a very different group. When Universe was released in 2007, that's when Alex and Simone joined the fray. And Mark would join on drums, and that would pretty much make up the band as it is on I Am the Revolution, with Chris Hansen filling out the guitar part. And one of the interesting things is that one Ashley Dudecourt was the artist on the cover art, and he would go on to become the band's drummer. And I guess to this day, he's still their newest member, beating out Scott Kay by at least a year or two. So just wanted to kind of fill in the gaps with the band's lineup. By the time The Meaning of I came out in 2011, the band was as we know it today, with Mark Bajan still on drums, but he left the band very shortly, actually before this album was actually released, because Ash was with them when you saw them in Brooklyn and when they played at Prague Power. He was very new to the band. I'm not even sure.
I think he even said it was like, if memory serves, and I'm going out on a limb here, I think he said to me it was like that week he had joined the band. Like, it was really... That might have been
his first gig.
It was his first gig,
at the Brooklyn show.
I believe it was.
Yeah, that's cool. He just seemed like, when I met him, he seemed like he'd been there the whole time. There was just something very like comfortable and just like he's such a friendly guy. Big fan of Ash. But anyway, circling back to your question, my remembrance of my getting into this band would probably started in 2010. Because as we've said many times, 2009 was kind of my resurgence year as a metal fan. But I think it was in 2010 when they were announced to play Prague Power in 2011. I had been kind of familiar with, like, I know you had mentioned them before, that they were really really unique and different. And I remember when they got announced that you in particular were very excited about the fact that they were going to play live. In that 1 year between them being announced and them playing, I became a huge fan of these first three albums. And by the time they set foot on stage, The Meaning of I think, was set to come out a week or two after, and they had a few copies early that they were like just tossing into the crowd. I remember just like them just winging the CD. I'm surprised nobody lost an eye. I think Eldritch did the same thing as well, because they had their new album that wasn't quite out yet at the same time. That lineup was crazy. I look forward to, or I think we have talked about that one. That'll probably see the light of day at some point. Although for now it's just a Patreon only bonus episode. But anyway, yeah, to make a long story short, that was kind of my trajectory as a fan. And then once I saw them live, it took it to a whole new level for me, because and I almost consider this like the least important factor, but they were outstanding musicians. Like, just, they sonically were great. Danny had a very clear and great voice. Like, his range could handle anything that he had already recorded. So it wasn't like he was having to go falsetto or like, sing in lower octaves in certain points. And like the rest of the band, all super, super talented. but it was really the infectious energy. And you know, we go back to Prague Power 3 and we talk about who's the Ed guy of the year. And it's always that like that band in the middle of the festival lineup who just like knocks everybody's socks off. Every year there's always at least one. And that year for me, it was definitely Voyager. And I think I'd said to you earlier, they wrote their ticket at that festival with that show. And sure enough, here we are in 2026, and they are headlining the final night of Glenn Harveston's, you know, promoting career at this festival. So that's the trajectory that they had in the 25 years, or I'm sorry, spoke too soon, the 15 years since their first appearance at the festival. So that's really what kind of did it for me. Just like that infectious energy. The songs too were just that from this album in particular, being that it was like their most recent album that had actually been released. But the set list was essentially Universe and I Am the Revolution with I think there was a couple of Meaning of I tracks and maybe a couple of Element 5 tracks thrown in for good measure, and then the ever popular medley. But I mean, I think that they made a lot of fans that day, and I was well on my way, and that kind of cemented it for me.
Well, to your point, that festival has had a handful of bands that, simply put, were just more popular with that crowd than anywhere else, maybe in the world. And I don't mean that they're not playing bigger shows elsewhere, but there was a rabid fan base that latched on to certain bands. Evergrey is one of those bands. Voyager is one of those bands. And the other two that come to mind immediately are Pagan's Mind and Circus Maximus. There's something about those four bands that they packed that room like nobody else's business. And it's really fitting, I think, that Voyager is closing out the festival. And as far as this particular album goes, before we start talking about the individual tracks, I also have vivid memories of them playing the entire album on my birthday in 2015. And I say that because not only was that just a vivid memory of mine because of the day it took place and everything, but I remember Danny mentioning in the middle of the album, like, we're never doing this again, because apparently it was just a complete and unmitigated the amount of work that went into just learning this. And then, by the way, playing another set 2 days later. Let's not forget that. Definitely a labor of love and something that they were doing just for this crowd, because they did it once, and they're not doing that again, I'm sure.
That was probably like one of my favorite of any of the bands that have played Prague Power twice in the same week. And there isn't really a ton of them. That has to be probably my favorite, just getting to hear all of this album, but then them coming out 2 days later. I sponsored them that year, actually, and like having DC Cooper come out and sing Fire of the Times, like that was such a great, that whole festival, that lineup was outstanding, but that was a highlight for me. And I remember like the conversation had come up when they'd come back in 2018. And I remember just the discussion, like, is Voyager a headline band? And I said, maybe not everywhere, but at Prague Power, I absolutely say that they are. I mean, the same way that like Circus Maximus and Pagan's Mind and bands like that. I 8 years ago was saying that, or 8-9 years ago saying that Voyager most definitely would not be, that to me wouldn't be weird for them to headline the festival. And I think that that was almost like the trial run, and it went really well because they played for 2 hours plus. I'll never forget. Wildly long set list. And I remember them saying at the time it was the longest set they ever played. I have to believe it still is. They basically were just told, go out and play for as long as you want. And they sure as hell did. So kind of a brief kind of history of them at the festival. And this is, if you count that show in the Loft, this year is going to be their fifth Prague Power set. But yeah, I remember thinking how cool it was to hear songs like Straight to the Other Side and Times Like These and Total Existence Failure, because I think these were songs that like the band just didn't play live. I don't know. Some of them probably were only ever played live in that little room above center stage.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It wasn't even in the main room. It was upstairs in a venue that holds maybe 400 or 500 people max.
I'd kill for a copy of that recording of that set, because it's just such a rarity. Like, you really just literally had to be there.
Yeah, well said. Let's get into it. I want to talk about this. The album kicks off with one of, if not the best Voyager album opener in Land of the Lies. I'm not sure you can start an album with a better riff. I mean, it is that infectious. And you're off to the races on this one almost immediately. What can I say about this track? There's something about those keys in the background behind that riff that provides like an excellent companion, and they complement the riff, perfectly. The verses almost have this whimsical quality to them, but that infectious melody never stops throughout. And then they really start using growls or harsh vocals in spots on this album, and they do it really, really well. It doesn't overpower the music, but it just adds another element to it. And what can you say about the chorus? Just an earworm of a chorus, one of many, many on this album. And of course, who doesn't love a guitar solo right during the middle of the instrumental section? Best opener that you can think of on a Voyager album, as far as I'm concerned, and just a classic Voyager tune.
Well, I'm going to get this one out of the way early because it's my song of the week. I've always been a huge, huge fan of this song, but I will never forget the time that I saw them in New York City with you open for Rhapsody of Fire at the time. This was the Fabio Leone, Alex Starpoli Rhapsody of Fire. I think Tom Hess was in the band at the time, Amy's uncle. And I literally made the trip down just to see Voyager play for 30, 40 minutes, whatever the hell it was. I was so excited to see them in New York. And when they played this song, I lost my mind. Like, I like marked out, and they would, they like took a lot of video footage on these tours and stuff, and they showed like the crowd in New York. And I think right behind the guy on the rail, and you just see me like losing my shit on this video. Just like you would have thought that somebody was having like some sort of attack. Like I was just black Mets hat and tall guy just losing his mind. And that was me. And I love this song so much. And I remember after the set was over, I can't remember if it was either Scott or Ash. One of them handed me the set list, and they were just like, dude, you knew every word to every song. And I'm like, yeah, I'm something of a fan, I guess. I don't know if I had like ingratiated myself with everyone in the band yet at that point in time, but such a memorable experience, even though it was such a short set. Do you remember who played in between Voyager and Rhapsody that night?
No, because I forgot about this show until you mentioned it. Now that you mentioned it, it's all coming back to me. It was at the Gramercy Theater. I remember that. I'm trying to think of who the middle act was, and I have no recollection at all.
It was Suspire.
Wow, that's what a world. What a world.
And I believe it was the only show that they like played with Rhapsody. It was just because it was in New York and they were from Jersey.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of a cool thing. Like, I always wanted to see Suspire.
Speaking of Suspire, when I first saw Suspire?
Prog Power, right?
Nope.
Oh,
nope.
In your backyard?
Opening for Shadow Gallery.
Shadow
Gallery's first ever concert. So
yeah, I remember that.
Talk about a trivia question, but I digress. Let's give Land of the Lies a listen, and we'll be right back.
See how the waters fall, they soar into your soul, and you must try to stay inside your own abode. Just don't become too slow, don't let it overflow.
So that was Land of the Lies. We're starting off with a bang here with your song of the week. Let me ask you this: was it a difficult choice? Because
Yes.
I found myself really
Yes,
struggling with this, and I have mine picked out, and it was not what I expected going into it. I'll say that. I kind of thought I was going to go in a different direction, but something won me over this week.
I went into it thinking that this would be my song of the week. I listened to the album a bunch of times and then got very confused. And then after it was all said and done, I was kind of like, this really is the one that I always circle back to, is the one that just gets me super amped up. And it really is a great example of what Voyager was doing in their early days, where they were combining these progressive elements, but with this really like upbeat, almost like a poppy power metal kind of vibe, but with progressive elements. And I always thought it was funny that they came out with that shirt that said that their genre was epic electro progressive pop power metal. And it's like, it's a little wordy, but it's kind of like you need all of those descriptors to
without
describe
one
this
of them
band.
It doesn't describe the band, so like
Exactly.
It kind of works. I will say that within 30 seconds of the first time I put this album on, including this song of course, not only did it immediately raise my spirits and put me in a good mood, but I'll admit it was the first time I had listened to the album in its entirety since they played it live like a dozen years ago or 11 years ago. So I had listened to certain songs, but I had never played it straight through. So it was just a really nice way to ingratiate myself back before getting into the second track, Common Ground. And you want to talk about an awesome 1-2 punch? Common Ground provides it, because it's almost the antithesis in terms of how the song is structured. I'll call it a nice counterpoint to the opening track. Here, it's the keyboard intro that shines. I love the grooviness on this track. Changes of speed throughout the song. It was a song of the week candidate for me. And it's got a chorus that's just absolutely to die for, blending that like 80s synth pop sound with just straight up metal. I love the bridge, which is a little bit heavier. This is one of my absolute favorite songs in their catalog. And I think it's just great because of the vocal lines. The vocal lines are just something that you can latch onto and they just stay with you. I don't know that I ever realized how awesome the drum fills are at the end of this track, but that really stood out to me as well. Fantastic tune.
I always thought that this was one of the, I always think it's funny when I use the word underrated to describe a song from an underrated band. But I feel like this is an underrated song, just that like, I don't think you hear in a lot of Voyager conversations of the many that I'm sure our listeners have. You hear this song brought up, but it is a really excellent song. And I feel kind of blessed that we got to hear it live in the loft. I don't know that the band ever played it at all. Otherwise, I'll take a quick look at, according to setlist.fm, they've played it live twice ever.
Wow.
And the other time was at Prague Power Europe the year before. Now I'm kind of curious about that set list. Anyway, I have a Voyager's greatest hits mix that I made years and years and years ago. Pretty much when, I don't even know if Meaning of I was out yet. It might have just come out, but this song was on that list just because I always really liked it. And I think that kind of keeps the vibes going from that first track. I think it's a little bit slower, but it still has some pep in its step. And I'm glad that you like it as much as I do, because I really do think it's kind of an underappreciated song. And I doubt that the band is going to be like pulling out a lot of deep cuts or deep weeds, if you will, at Prague Power this year. But I think it's going to be like a play the stuff everybody loves sort of thing. But boy,
there's an argument. If I could hear two songs off this album, this would be one of them, and then my song of the week would be the other one. And I'm not sure they're going to play either one, but I would love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of songs in the early catalog that I would love to hear. There's some stuff on Element 5. Like they continue to play what's the track that they still play? To the Morning Light, because they re-recorded it also on a later album. But there's a lot of stuff on there that I feel like would be really fun to hear. I know it's a totally different lineup nowadays, but it was cool in the that retrospective that they did during COVID, the Voyage Through Time. They did 2 songs from every album, and they played the 11th Meridian from Element 5, and I thought that was so cool. And just for information's sake, Devil in Me and I Am the Revolution were the choices from this album. So
I wouldn't complain about either of those either. It's just so good. I just love the way this album starts, and it really doesn't slow down with the third track, Lost. Probably the most well-known song on the album. Would you agree?
I was just going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if you thought that was the most well-known song on the album. I think it is too.
I think it is. I had this on in my car this week, over the weekend, and even my wife was like, "Oh yeah, this is Voyager," because she knows this song. So that should tell you something. And
did you know where you were going at the time?
No, I actually was very lost. I had to use the GPS, if I'm being honest.
Perfect.
Another fantastic song, and I know I sound like a broken record, but this is so catchy, despite how kind of simple it is in some respects. This is one of those like less is more, but it works completely. The verses have that punch. It's in your face, but it's not to the point that it beats you over the head. And then it has this like spacey chorus to it, which really I think defined their sound during this time period. The solos maybe a little bit less technical than some of the other songs in the catalog, but the song is so good it doesn't really matter. Another song that when played live, very powerful, very catchy.
I would recommend that for our Sunday Select this week, we post the Prog Power video of them performing this at their first Prog Power appearance, because it was on the Prog Power 12, I believe, DVD, and I think all of those videos have made their way onto YouTube, and so it's really cool seeing them, a little bit younger and play, but full of energy. And it always, when I hear the song, I always think of that particular performance, because I feel like everybody was just really, really into it, and it was really awesome. I think the band also made a music video for this as well. And then wasn't there a techno remix or something that they made like a video for that was, I remember Caleb put it on a Power Hour once. It was pretty neat. But yeah, it's the, like you said, it's like one of the more, I think, well-known Voyager songs. I think it's a staple in the set list up even to this day. But I wouldn't mind hearing it again. If they bust it out, and I have a feeling they will. I think this is a welcome addition to any of their set lists. But yeah, another really good song.
So as we forge on ahead here to The Devil in Me, track number 4, your thoughts on this one?
Oh my God, another outstanding song. I could have gone Song of the Week on I think pretty much any of these first 4 tracks, if I'm being honest. But this, I think, might be my favorite outside of Land of the Lies. Another one that they played at that first Prog Power set. I love in the verse how the verses have like this almost ethereal, floaty kind of quality, and then when the chorus comes back in, like the electric guitars kick off, and like it really picks up energy. And then it has one of the most, I think, iconic Voyager choruses of all time. Like I could definitely seeing everybody singing along to this one. This one for sure there was a music video for, but really awesome song. They got in towards the end of the song. They kind of go into that like whispery, like it gets real quiet before it picks up again. But that part where you hear the whisper, "Devil in me," and then the song just kicks back in again, I get goosebumps every time. It's just an outstanding track, and man, we're really off to the races on this one. This album starts out super strong.
Yeah, this is another banger, and I think the verses, like you said, they have a bit of a subdued quality to it, but that chorus packs a real punch. I love the layered vocals. I think that adds a really nice touch. And that melodic chorus is just so catchy that this entire song becomes a favorite of mine. Really love the keys. I think they stand out on this track. And I think the song ends really strong as well. And even though they keep repeating the title of the song, it's so good it doesn't bother me. And some really awesome use of samples throughout that I think just kind of add to the effect. Big fan. Big fan. And even though I would argue that the first 4 songs may be a little bit better than some of the stuff that come after it, there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes after it. And Close Your Eyes is one of those tracks. The intro specifically reminds me of like a detective movie or a detective video game soundtrack. Really like spooky and kind of almost like I'm in the middle of a game of Clue. Like it's really interesting, really unique. And the song really kind of keeps up that spooky vibe. Awesome drum fills. And a song that also nobody really talks about. Some of my favorite verses on the album are in Close Your Eyes. And again, I love the vocal lines. And I think it's better than the chorus. The chorus is maybe a tad weaker in comparison to some of the other stuff. Just not my favorite. But I love the guitar solo. The lyrics are outstanding. And I just forgot how good this song was. It's like kind of gets lost because of the 4 songs in front of it. No pun intended.
The harmonizing of the vocals in the verses, I hold a special place in my heart because whenever I hear the song, I choose which voice I'm going to do each time, and it differs depending on what kind of mood I'm in. It's a really fun song to sing along to, and it happens to be the longest song on the album, and I think that it has a lot of build and slow down and then rebuild, and like it's a really meaty song, I think, but it's really, really good. I like this song a lot, and again, this is another one that I think I had also on that greatest hits playlist that I made years ago, and I've always really liked this one a lot. So far, we're 5 for 5 on potential Song of the Week candidates for me.
I have little doubt in my mind that Total Existence Failure is one of your favorites on this album because it's a banger from start to finish. And I think it flows really nicely when you compare it to Close Your Eyes. Really tight tune. Awesome to hear live. This was one of the highlights of that set we spoke about earlier, just of how well it came off. I love the verses, but honestly, that pre-chorus and the chorus is really where the song makes its money. It reminds me a lot of the first album. This is kind of a throwback track in many respects, just with better production. And I like how a song like this really changes the album from being a good album to a great album because you've got these tracks buried in the middle that just are fantastic. And even though they don't come off as like a single, they're just great tunes. And it's just interesting to me how, I don't know, like dueling solos, an amazing instrumental section, which is a bit mellow, but it seems to work. This was another song that I almost had as my Song of the Week, but I'm going to go in a different direction.
This might surprise you, but this is actually my least favorite song of the first 6 songs.
Really? That surprises me. Because it has power metal vibes.
But it's also like saying that it's a 9 after 5 10s in a row. You know, like it's not that I dislike the song at all. It's just that start is just like, you know, torrid. I've always liked this song, and I think that it, especially the keys, they have kind of almost like this like robotic, futuristic kind of vibe, and so does Danny's vocals when he's doing the chorus. There's something just very like sci-fi almost about this track, and so I agree with you. It was such a treat to hear it because it felt like one of those songs you weren't really going to hear them play unless it was a special set, like playing this whole album. I should mention too, this was a fan vote. The fans voted which album they wanted to hear the band play in full, and this was the one they voted for. I voted for Universe, just saying. And I had a fun conversation with Aiden, who is their producer, I believe. We ran into him in the Artmore, we had our door open and he came in and we gave him a beer and he was like, I love these American guys. They're great. Super nice guy. And he was, I was talking to him about how I was like, I voted for Universe. He's like, yes. He's like, I love that album. I'm like, well, you produced it, so I guess you probably should. But, I not to say I was disappointed. I just think that probably would have been a real challenge for them to learn all those songs. At least some of these, they were already playing live anyway. I mean, there was probably like 5 songs that they really needed to learn, from the ground up. But yeah, this was fun. This is a fun tune too, and I think that it just keeps the good vibes going. But this and like the next handful of tracks, I feel like are a little bit more of the more obscure songs from the album, and the ones that I really were alluding to that the band kind of needed to really hone going into that one-time set. But yeah, very, very cool song. I like that it feels a little different. Like each one of these songs really has its own vibe. There's not really like a specific sound. Really, there's maybe like an overarching sound that the album has, but I think each song really has its own uniqueness to it, and I think that's what makes it a really special album. So yeah, we carry on.
Straight to the other side. We kick off, I guess, what we'd call side B of the album. What are your thoughts on this one? Again, a little bit more of an obscure tune at this point in the album. Your thoughts on this one?
I like this one a lot. I like that the verses are like faster than the chorus. The chorus like slows down after like a kind of a speedier verse, and it makes for a really interesting like dichotomy. I always really like this song. I feel like the keyboards that the patch that's used like in the middle of the song almost has like an accordion kind of vibe to it. I'm almost like whisked away to like Venice, like riding the gondola while the man in the striped shirt plays the accordion. And I think that's kind of cool. I think there was a similar sound on one of the songs.
I think it's the first song on Universe.
Yeah, Universe. Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure I've heard that patch on Element 5 as well. So, kind of I think a Danny special there. But yeah, this is another really good tune. I think another one of the underappreciated tracks on the album. But I like this one a lot too. Like just I like that Danny kind of does his voice goes up on the last chorus of the song. That really kind of gives it a kind of like an exclamation point at the end of the song. But yeah, this is another good song. I mean, we're 7 for 7 at this point.
Does the speedy intro remind you of another band?
Yes, I just don't know who.
This reminds me a lot of like what Sonata Arctica was doing in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Not the whole song, but just the intro before the vocals kick in. What I never realized, though, is how some of these bass lines are just fantastic, and they really jump out on this track. Kind of a proggy song, and I agree with you. I think the verses are even outshadow the chorus with those speedy verses. It's a little repetitive for my taste. Probably my least favorite song so far, but it's still thoroughly enjoyable. It's just a notch below with the stuff that came before it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we forge on to In My Arms. I love the intro sound effects to this one. Very cool sound, especially when you interplay them with the vocals. It's got this like synthetic goth sound, which is kind of cool. And even the drums have a really interesting sound. Sonically, I think they sound very cool. It's kind of a different take on a ballad. It's like, at least that's what it sounds like to me. There's some strings on here, so they're adding that element as well with a string section. Not my favorite song, but I appreciate the fact that they were trying to mix it up and just put something different on there.
Yeah, I feel like at this point in the album, it actually is kind of a welcome change of pace, really. And I don't know, I would definitely not call it like my favorite slower Voyager song of all time, but I also think that it really fits well on the album. And I think like you really had like 7 really banging tracks, and it kind of, the pace continues after this, so I feel like you kind of need something like this. And I always just appreciate like a little bit of a softer tune. I think Sober kind of provided that on the previous album. Yeah, I like this one. It has kind of again, like an ethereal quality. That keyboard at the beginning that you mentioned kind of reminds me of like something off of Luca Turilli's first solo album, like just kind of a weird kind of like an ethereal keyboard or whatever. Like there's one of the things that always really drew me to this band was just how much the keyboards mattered, and it wasn't just guitar driven, prog metal. It was, keyboard and guitar and bass and drums and vocals and all those genres we mentioned earlier all kind of rolled up into one package, which is why I think they are one of the most unique metal bands out there, and why I think they were a really good choice to send over to Eurovision. Because I just think that there's something that casual fans of hard rock music that might not necessarily be like dig into, the most obscure prog bands that are out there, like would hear it and be like, oh shit, this is really good stuff. And so circling back to the song, I just think that it kind of continues that feel that anything's possible as you go from track to track, and everything's going to be, every song's going to have its own kind of vibe to it. This one I think probably feels the most different of any of the songs on the album.
I think that's right. And as we kind of forge ahead here down the home stretch, we get to Times Like These. This is another song with like some proggy elements to it. And I think the guitar riffs kind of drive the song along. The verses sound like they're really kind of building to something in the form of, I guess, a really solid chorus. A lot of atmospheric keyboard sounds that really add to the overall sound of the song. And even like a little bass solo in one spot, which I thought was cool. The keys specifically remind me of some of the stuff on the first album, kind of a throwback, and a great instrumental section, and amongst one of my favorites, to be honest with you. And I love the bridge that follows it. I think this is a really solid tune.
I agree with you. I think that the second half of the song is even better than the first, like kind of where the soloing starts. There's like this, again, it gets kind of quiet and the guitars kind of come in and out, and they do a really good job at like keeping you guessing. Like if you're listening to this album for the first time, I don't think that you're going to be able to predict even like within a song, like what's going to happen next. And so, I don't know. This is another good one. I'm kicking myself just because like, and I know it's just just because of time or whatever, but boy, I really, I wish I could go back and see them play this album again. Like it's such a like hazy memory as it tends to be. Like you're already, you're partying all weekend. You're seeing a ton of bands. In this case, you're seeing the same band twice in 3 days. Like it all, in a lot of ways, starts to kind of run together, which is unfortunate because like I don't have a vivid memory of hearing Voyager play Times Like These in the Loft. It's and
may never see anything like that remotely close to it again. Unfortunately,
it's probably not a may. It's probably a will not. Like that's
right.
So yeah, like and then it goes into another track that I think is another very underappreciated, underrated Voyager song, On the Run from the World, which I think again just comes in like all guns blazing and super speedy. And I think it also has a super catchy chorus, tons of good instrumentation, great soloing. I think my only issue is that I feel like these handful of songs I think could have been spread out a little bit more, where like the first 5 tracks are just so good. Like some of my all-time favorite Voyager songs, and the last song with the little intro track before it is on that list as well. But then kind of in the towards the back, you just have these handful of like 8s and 9s on an album full of 10s. So So really, I feel like these songs kind of suffer from kind of all being bunched together. And I think that might be more of a subjective thing for me. But when I listen to these songs in a vacuum, I think I enjoy them more on their own than when I'm listening to the album. And it's kind of like, I just got really like amped up for the first 5 tracks. Now I'm kind of getting excited to hear that last one. And it's almost like, you know, the other songs, like, what I'm saying make any sense? Is there, can you maybe...
Yeah, it's just like you've got, I think you use the analogy, a bunch of 9s in a sea of 10s, and they kind of grouped a lot of the 9s together. The one thing I'll take umbrage with is I don't think this is a 9. I think this is closer to a 10. I love this track. It's upbeat again, nice contrast to the ballady song that comes before it. And it's got this blend of like power metal and, dare I say, black metal with the harsh vocals. Like there's like touches, just flourishes of black metal on this track, which is really cool. The chorus is exceptionally good. Not just the melody, but the drum fills. Fantastic. This is one of those songs on the back of the album that nobody ever talks about, but I'd argue it's one of the best songs in the catalog. It's just, it gets lost amongst some of these other gems, I guess. And again, even with some of the keyboard solos here, I hear Sonata Arctica again for the second time. I almost wonder if they were on the radar for the band at this point, just because I hear the comparison now for the second time.
I mean, could very well be. When I listen to this band, it's like trying to think about who inspired them. Like, you know, I'm thinking of like Sonata Arctica, but I'm also thinking of like Duran Duran and like 80s like new wave and but also like prog bands. Like there's so much going on. And even some songs even have kind of like a danciness to them, like almost like a Euro dance kind of vibe too. And I think that's why this band was such an easy sell for me when I first heard them, because this, like, you hear a song like White Shadow or I Am the Revolution or Land of the Lies, and it's just like you can't help but not be sucked in immediately. And again, my own personal opinion, one of the issues that I have getting into the newer Voyager, and by that I mean like 5 and forward, so like 2014 and the you know albums that followed, the songs don't grab me as quickly. But what ends up happening is, like, over time I end up loving those songs when I go back to them. But when I first hear the album, I'm just kind of like, it doesn't have that infectiousness that, in particular, I think Universe and I Am the Revolution had. But then there's probably people that got into Voyager later on and went back to listen to their old stuff and was like, you know, meh, you know, like,
yeah, I think that's fair.
You know, everybody
evolved. The band just kind of morphed into something else over time. Not good or bad, just different. And so there was certainly an evolution in their sound.
Or a revolution,
as the case may be. And so we're at the end here with Without a Sigh, which is kind of this 1:45 interlude before the final song. I don't have much to say about this other than the vocals are solid, but otherwise it's kind of not really that noteworthy. And then you get into the final track, I Am the Revolution. Any thoughts on this interlude?
I used to have these two tracks connected just because, to me, like, this is like the intro to I Am the Revolution. Like, in my head, it just kind of makes this really gothic, creepy, like, deliberate intro. You know, it's really just Danny and some creepy keyboards. And I think that what it does is, I think that it kind of like builds up this almost false sense of not false sense of security. That's obviously the wrong word.
It lulls you into something that it's not.
Yeah. And then like you move on to the final track, the title track, and you hear like the whispers or whatever, like, you know, and it's like, all right, what's happening? It makes me think of Dream Theater on some of the tracks where they used like clips from movies and TV shows and stuff. I don't know if that was from something or if the band recorded that portion of it. And so, like, you know, it starts out kind of unassuming, like, I am the revolution. And then 33 seconds in, the riff hits, and you're like, oh, God, it's on. and much like Land of the Lies, which just starts out with that, like, super, super memorable and iconic now riff, this song is the perfect bookend to that because, it, again, is the same. It pulls off that same thing, and I have to say, like, at the end of the day, it was in between. It was between the first and the last song for me for Song of the Week. It looks like we both made the right choice because we get to play a minute of each, and this is an outstanding song, one of my favorite Voyager songs, and I thought it was the right. Absolutely right choice for the last song on the album. It ends the album on a bang, and I think it leaves you wanting more and being excited about the next Voyager release.
Well, you used the word bookend, and that's exactly what we've done with our songs of the week. Let's give it a listen, and then I'll kind of come back and explain why I chose it. And I'll make a confession, because I definitely have to make a confession as it relates to this track. Here's the title track, I Am the Revolution.
That it's in my hands. Round and round, the silent sounds of the world goes round. I will understand. Till this time, figure out the sound. Understand this revolution of man. This revolution of man. This revolution of man. Round and round, the silent sounds of the world goes round. I will understand. Choice is mine and it's not a crime, and I have the time that it's in my hands. Round and round, the silent sounds of the world goes round. I will understand. Take this time, figure out the sound. Understand this revolution of man. This revolution of man. This revolution of man.
All right, I'm going to be honest with you. I selected this track, and I don't know that I would have ever guessed going into this week that I would have selected it. And I'll say that for one reason. I never had anything against it. I just never realized how perfect it was. And when I heard it this week for the first time, I was like, I've been sleeping on this track for the better part of 15 years. Again, not that it was ever bad. It was just kind of there for me. But it hit, and I recognized the brilliance this week. I could not get it out of my head. I would walk to the bathroom, and I'd be singing it. People would be coming to my office, and I'd be singing the track. It is the perfect closer. The piano is great. The riff is intoxicating. The different vocal styles complement each other perfectly. Some awesome bass lines underneath it, and it's a little repetitive, but it is just perfect, just the same. Love the solos. Amazing tune. I don't know why it never popped for me before this week, but boy, did it hit this week.
I don't know. If I had known that, I would have made you listen to it a long time ago. Because
I listened to it. I knew it. It just for
I
some
would have made
reason
you listen to it repeatedly
until I fell in love. Well,
Yeah.
I fell in love with it this week for sure, and I hope they play it live. I would mark out if they play this.
Yeah, same here. It's I remember this was another one that they played at that show in New York, and I was very excited to hear that as well. So nice choice. But yeah, there's a lot to love in between these bookends, man. This is a really outstanding album. It might be my favorite Voyager album after going back to it.
Going into this week, I would have said Universe, and I did listen to Universe again. It's really close. It's really, really close. Hard for me to say, and I'm not even sure if my score for Universe is the same as it would have been if I listened to it now. It's just hard to say. But I'm so curious as to your score for this because it's even better than I remembered it.
I gave Universe a 9.25. I'm going to give this a 9.375. 1/8 of a point higher. I think that, and I did the same as you. I went back and listened to Universe again. And
what did I give Universe? Because I have a number in mind. I'm just curious.
Let's see.
But with the benefit of hindsight, you have this as a better album.
Yes. You gave Universe a 9.0.
It's funny because I was going to give this album a 9.0, so I'm going to definitely take the easy way out and give it a 9.0. But that's where I was, not even knowing what I had given Universe. Two stellar releases, and I'm glad that we finally got to talk about this. And if nothing else, it just got me really excited to see them again.
Same here. I've been listening to even just random songs from later in the catalog, and I also listened to The Meaning of I today as well, and that album is really like, I feel like, the bridge between the old Voyager and the new Voyager, because you hear, I feel like, pieces of both kind of colliding. And so if you like both eras, that might be a great album, for the old and new fan of Voyager. Some of my favorite Voyager songs are on that album, and I know we'll definitely talk about it at some point in long form. But I thought, I don't know why I had such a difficult time deciding what to pick for this week, but I'm glad that we talked about Voyager, especially so close to us getting to see them at Prague Power in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, very, very good. And before we get to our request for next week, just some news items I wanted to mention. Forbidden has announced their self-titled album and released a single for a song called Cyclops. Their new album is due out October 23rd. Lots of our Patreon members talking about Forbidden and some of the other contemporary thrash bands in the group chat today. So that was interesting to see. I will be checking this out when it comes out in just a few months. So I wanted to mention that. In addition, Saxon coming out with a new album called Gods of Thunder, due out January of next year. That's another band that we've not covered, and we are long overdue. And at some point, we have to pick one of their albums. They have a massive discography, but we just got to dive in and kind of pick one of those. And finally, an interesting tour that was announced for this fall in North America. Trivium going out on tour with In Flames, Orbit Culture, Fit for an Autopsy, and Frozen Soul. So a lot of different genres getting hit on this one. They start November 5th in St. Petersburg, Florida. They end December 19th in Charlotte. So they make their way down to the southeast again, and they're hitting a lot of cities in between. So kind of a big tour with some major names on it, to say the least. So that is definitely on people's radars, and I heard a lot of people talking about that tour as well. If for no other reason, there's like at least one band on the tour that people want to see. Some going for Orbit Culture, some going for In Flames, and obviously Trivium has a wonderful history as well.
The different bands opening though, right? Depending on the location. Correct.
I mentioned several bands, and it is depending on the location. You are going to get some combination of that package. So I should note that. You're correct.
It's interesting when bands do that. I feel like sometimes you get really lucky and see like an opener that you're really excited about, and then there's other times where you're like, damn, if I could have just gone to the San Francisco show, I could have seen, so and so. So I feel like, you could end up getting people really excited or really disappointed, but it's cool. I like the idea, especially if you're somebody who follows the band around. You get to see different openers. But I think the day of the static openers has come and gone.
Yeah, it seems like it. But, I guess it's a good way to get other bands exposure. So I have no problem with it whatsoever. And with that said, a request for next week, which I was surprised to see, but really glad that it was chosen. And I'll get into the details as to why next week. But do you want to reveal the album for next week?
No, because I don't want to bungle the title.
All right, so I'll give it a shot. The band I'm talking about is The Reticent, and I'm talking about their 2020 release, Oubliette. And this is a band I will readily admit I have overlooked. I listened to their last album when it came out, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. But that was the first time I had ever heard a full-length release. So this album in particular, I'd never heard a note of. And the first time I heard it, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like was like, where has this been all my life? It really hit that hard. Like, I couldn't believe how good it was. And I've listened to it 3 times since then. And I'll probably listen to it every day until we record, because I'm so enamored by this band at this point. I did not see them when they played Prog Power the last time, and I'm kicking myself because I think I missed something really special.
Yeah, I think I didn't even go. I don't think I went to that entire show. That was, I think, one of the Wednesday lineups. I'm pretty sure. But I listened to the album for the first time earlier today, and I enjoyed it, actually, and I'm excited to kind of dig into more of the subject matter that goes kind of beyond the music itself, because it's really heady kind of stuff, talking about, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff like that. But I was nervous that it was going to be like the overly technical prog that I don't really enjoy as much. And it turns out while technical for sure, there was something that was very accessible for me about it. And so I look forward to revisiting the album a few times before we talk about it. And we also have a discussion, a conversation slated with Chris Hathcock, who I believe is the kind of the mastermind behind the Reticent. I had mentioned to you earlier, if you go to metalarchives.com and you go to band members, it just says Chris Hathcock everything. So that led me to believe that he probably was, you know, the guy who started the band and probably had a lot to do with the subject matter and the lyrics and the songwriting and stuff. So I reached out to him, and he turns out lives all of about 30 minutes away from where I live, which is pretty cool. And I had said to you earlier, it'll be nice to schedule a discussion with somebody that is in the same time zone. You don't understand what a issue it can be sometimes to nail down times where everybody is free when there's like a 6 to 8 hour time difference. But anyway, I'm looking forward to both the conversation and the album discussion of the album. And this one came from our friend Knops, whose name has probably been mentioned on this podcast more than just about anybody else's. But I look forward to, I think he said he was going to send us another video blurb like he did last time. So I look forward to that. But yeah, nice choice. And another kind of inadvertently two prog power bands in a row with Voyager and the Reticent. One opening on, I think, Wednesday, and one headlining on Saturday.
Talk about bookends.
Yeah, for real. I that was completely by accident. I think Reticent is opening Wednesday, or maybe it's Thursday. I don't remember, but that, whatever the case may be, I feel like we're just going to be talking about prog power for the next 6 weeks or so. It's going to get snuck into conversations, or we're just going to flat out cover bands that are playing the festival. But yeah, exciting times, and day by day getting a little more excited for this lineup that is arguably the most insane prog power lineup of all time.
No argument from me. If you like what you hear, though, give us a like and a follow. As I mentioned earlier, consider joining the Patreon. It really does help support, keep the show going, so we appreciate all of you. And with that, I'm going to go listen to this Reticent album again. I've been enjoying it each and every time I listen to it. I really do look forward to having that discussion, not only with the mastermind behind the band, but also with you next week. So enjoy the week, my friend, and I will see you soon.
Very soon.